Okay, let me share my slides and then we can go. Let me just see if anyone else has joined. Kishore Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. All right.
Prabhu, the lectures are really interesting. I just have one request.
Sure.
I know others are devotees and very senior devotees in this group, but to be honest, I struggle. So my humble request would be if we can summarize whatever we have discussed in this nectar of devotion, maybe in 5 minutes first, and then we go further. If it helps, then I do read a little bit after the class, but I just want to revise whatever has happened so far. So then there's a link going forward like that. If it can be done, I'm not saying it should be done, but I'm just requesting.
Oh, certainly, Kishore Prabhu. That's a good point. We'll try to, and please feel free. In the in your Zoom, if you click on the tab, there's more, and it's called reactions. Let me just see. Yeah, there is something called reactions, I think.
Yeah.
So at any point in time, you feel while we're going along, there's something that requires a little more clarity. Because sometimes I might just, go along without pausing. Raise your hand, and then at an appropriate time, I will stop and I'll come back to you. So don't ever feel hesitant about doing that. You can at any point in time raise your hand using the relevant button. You'll all know that button?
Yeah.
Raise your hand button.
Yes.
Yes. So just do that, and then we'll carry on. So we'll move along. As always, we'll start off with the one verse as our invocation from the Sadgoswami Astakam. Nana Shastra Vichairane Kanipano Sadharma Samstapako Lokanamita Karino Tribhuvane Manya Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padada Vinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghujugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. And thus, they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Shri Sad Goswami Astaka, Srinivasacharya, verse 2. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadhantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Gauravani Prachari Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Vishatharini Kila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So dear devotees, we have now arrived at chapter 6, how to discharge devotional service. But before we do there, as suggested by Kishore Prabhu, we'll do a quick recap. We are now studying the nectar of devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the ocean of the nectar of Bhakti. Previously, we described the preface, which explains the background to this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. We discussed what is the definition of rasa, transcendental, mellow. And then we started off basically in the introduction with what is the definition of pure devotional service. This book is all about pure devotional service. So Rupa Goswami says it makes sense if we are discussing Uttama Bhakti, the topmost devotional service, pure devotional service, we should understand what that means. And we started off by discussing that definition, the famous definition of Anya Vilashita Shunyam. And hopefully, after having spoken about it so many times, you now understand what is the Swarup Lakshana, the primary characteristics of Uttama Bhakti, and what are the secondary characteristics. Everyone's comfortable with that? I guess, do we need to refresh our minds on what are the primary characteristics and what are the secondary, or you've all got that? Okay, silence normally means consent. I take it you all understand what are the primary and secondary characteristics of Uttama Bhakti. So once we finish that, we jumped into chapter 1. Definition is covered in the introduction. And chapter 1 is the characteristics of pure devotional service. And we discussed 6 characteristics, 2 that come at the stage of sadhana bhakti, the next 2 that come at the stage of bhava bhakti, and the last 2 that come at the stage of prema bhakti. So sadhana bhakti means devotional service in practice. Bhava bhakti means ecstatic devotional service. And prema bhakti means devotional service in pure love of God. That was a very, very interesting and relishable chapter. And hopefully you all are up to speed with that. If any of you feel you need notes for refreshing your mind, just drop me a note and I'll share notes with you. If you just want to.
I think that will help for the notes, yes.
Okay, so notes, I also do the PowerPoint slides. So I shall share that with y'all. I'll make a note.
Thank you.
And y'all could just use that as a reference point.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we went, just to take one step back, just remember that we are studying only the eastern side of it. There's the eastern side, there's the western side, there's the southern side, and the northern side. In this study that we are doing, we're only studying the eastern side. And the eastern side is made up of 19 chapters. Then we said the bulk of the eastern side of what we are going to be studying, which is chapter 2 all the way to chapter 16. The bulk of what we're going to be discussing is called sadhana bhakti, devotional service in practice. And Then we went into chapter number 2, which was the first stages of devotional service. We discussed what is the qualifications to practice devotional service. Then we discussed the definition of what is sadhana bhakti. Remember, there's 2 types of sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana, Raganuga sadhana. Vaidhi sadhana is at the stage where the main driver for our practice of devotional service is the injunction of the scriptures and the order of the spiritual master. Why is that the main drivers? Because we haven't developed our natural attraction yet, because of layers and layers of covering. So by practicing Vaidhi sadhana, regulative devotional service according to the injunction of the scripture and the order of the spiritual master, unwanted layers come out. Then it becomes spontaneous. And briefly, I don't want to get too technical on it. Spontaneous devotional service and practice means now you have an awakening for a certain type of devotional service and a certain rasa. Then to further enhance that, you practice by following in the wake of a certain resident of Vrindavan that has that particular rasa. That is Raganuga sadhana. You're not still struggling with that, don't worry. We'll get to that later. So that was chapter number 2. Then we went to chapter number 3 and we delved more into the eligibility of accepting pure devotional service. And we said the only eligibility we really need is the attraction for it, to want to perform devotional service. And then we raised the question, but where does this attraction come from? Why is it some people are attracted and other people are not attracted? And then we spoke about in some previous life, we would have started the process of devotional service. And then we discussed that what is the catalyst in that previous life? In that trajectory, we will always find somewhere in that trajectory some contact we had with a pure devotee of Lord Krishna. And that is what has led us to devotional service. And Srila Rupa Goswami said, basically, that's all we need. We don't really need wisdom, renunciation, and so on. And we discussed that too much renunciation is not too good, too less renunciation is not too good. If we're not renounced enough, we still remain trapped by the pullings of the material nature. And if we are too renounced, we get inclined towards jnana. So we need to be somewhere in the middle, renounced, but not too less renounced and not too much renounced. We just need to get the balance right. And if we get the balance right, our heart would be just of the right nature. Not too hard by too much sense gratification, not too much hard by too much jnana. And then Srila Rupa Goswami makes a special effort in chapter 4 to explain that how devotional service surpasses all liberation. And we said Srila Rupa Goswami is doing that for a particular reason. Because many of us, when we start devotional service, we have this action become liberated, to come out of the material world. But Rupa Goswami wants to take us higher than that. He wants to take us to the level where our only desire is to please Krishna, not even worried about liberation. And to do that, he makes a special effort in chapter 4 to emphasize how devotional service surpasses liberation. So we lose this attraction for wanting to come out of the material world, become free, to become liberated. Our main focus becomes how to give pleasure to Krishna, how to be situated on the platform of pure devotional service. And then chapter 5, Srila Rupa Goswami talks about the purity of devotional service. And again, we see a very particular intent here. The intent is for us to really understand. Sometimes we may be swayed. We may be swayed, but we understand that how, in particular, one needs no other prior qualification to take the devotional service. There's no required to become in a particular birth. One can be born in any family, any race, any language, any sex, any gender. A devotional service is so pure, anybody can take to it. It is so pure that we do not need to do atonement. If on the path of devotional service, there's a little blip, we make a mistake, we fall down, no prayaschitta, no atonement needed. Just carry on practicing the principles of devotional service and all success will be there. And then we didn't have much time to discuss it last week, but I'll just touch on it. You know, we often hear that unless one is on the liberated platform, one should practice Varnashram Dharma. And the reason we practice Varnashram Dharma is for gradual elevation, because some of us, you just cannot take, you know, fully to pure devotional service. We need to engage according to our psychophysical nature. But Srila Rupa Goswami explains that, you know, once one has come to a certain stage, there is no need to follow Varnashram Dharma. Bhakti is not dependent on Varnashram Dharma. This is something, if we become too caught up in Varnashram Dharma, then we may lose the plot. So we must understand properly what is the purpose of Varnashram Dharma and understand clearly that devotional service is not dependent on Varnashram Dharma. Simply by engaging in devotional service, we will receive all necessary purification. But in the beginning, there may be need to be engaged according to our psychophysical propensity. So that's where we landed up, devotees, up to chapter 5. Is everyone comfortable with that? Does that summary make sense? Does what we've just covered resonate with y'all? It all bring back what we've discussed?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you. Kishore Prabhu, is that?
Yes, definitely, Prabhu. You made my day. Thank you so much.
You made our day.
Okay.
Prabhuji, I only had one question linked to
Yeah,
chapter
sure,
5.
Mama.
Can I ask that?
Yes.
So on page 51, it says that once you're in devotional service, then your debts to forefathers and demigods and all that is not need. There's no debt to them. You don't owe them. So in that case, do we still recommend the performance of the Shraddha ceremony? Because I know Mahaprabhu did it for his father, and I was just wondering, in terms of ISKCON, is Shraddha still a ritual that we perform?
One who's on the level of Bhava Bhakti, no. You know, as we understand, you know, simply by coming to the stage of Bhava Bhakti, so many generations are just liberated. So just by dint of that, there's no need to do any other. But someone who's not on the level of Bhava Bhakti, wanting to set some example and help the forefathers, they can do that. I know devotees have a special way that they do the Shraddha compared to others. They offer the bhoga to the Lord, and that bhoga becomes prasad, and then they offer the prasad to the forefathers. And So yeah, you know, certain duties on Varnashram may be still required before we reach the higher stages of bhakti. But we should never think, if I don't do the Shrad, my bhakti will be affected. No. We just do it as part of our duties.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That's
Hare
very
Krishna.
clear. Thank you.
So now we arrive at chapter number 6, devotees.
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan, Chandra, Prabhu.
Yes, Palika Mataji.
Can I just
Sure.
mention something? I read in Bhagavatam when we are studying, Srila Prabhupada says that people who become in a devotional service or Krishna conscious, they don't need to follow the, what has been followed by our forefathers. In terms of Shraddha ceremony,
Yes.
because some of my family members passed away, and I made kind of every year is like a Nitya Seva. So on that day, the deceased person has their picture up there next to Srila Prabhupada, and on that day all the bhogas are offered to the person, and then we put that on that day, just put it outside the garden, the prasad, and then that's the way we've been following by the instruction of the temple authority.
Yes, Palika Mataji. The important point here is, and as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, if prematurely we give up all duties without being sufficiently purified, we may run into trouble. Certainly, none of these Vedic duties are required for one is on the stage of pure devotional service, the stage of Bhava Bhakti. But before that, we may need to do something, duties just for some purification. So thank you for that, Palika Mataji. Now we will move on to number 6, how to discharge devotional service. So it's a very interesting section, and it's very relevant for us because we are on the path of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. How to discharge devotional service. Now, many of what we are going to read over the forthcoming chapters, we are practicing it. We are doing, as the principles of Vaidhi Bhakti. But it's very interesting to understand Srila Rupa Goswami's and our Acharya's take on some of these principles. So when we read chapter 6, we see in the first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada talks about Hari Bhakti Vilas. So in these chapters, maybe I got a diagram I will show you here. The 64 items of sadhana bhakti will be discussed. That means the 64 items of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. And that is divided into 2 areas. The first is called the 20 items of primary importance. And in the 24 items of primary importance, there's pravriti and nivriti. Pravriti and nivriti. So the first is the positive injunctions, and then there's 10 negative prohibitions. So this is what we shall discuss first. The 10 positive injunctions, and then the 10 negative prohibitions. And then we shall discuss 44 additional items of service. And there are some very specific items from 21 to 59, some items of sadhana bhakti. And as we read them, we will see some of us have been following some of them. And some of it we've hardly been following. So we shall have some discussion about that. And then 60 to 64, Srila Rupa Goswami will discuss the 5 most potent. So there'll be 64 items, but there are 5 most potent items, which we will discuss in further detail. Now, Srila Rupa Goswami starts off this section by saying there's going to be 64 items discussed. So someone may ask the question, where does the 64 items come from? Where does Srila Rupa Goswami get them from? Which is an interesting question. And this is what Srila Prabhupada answers in the first paragraph of chapter number 6. And that is actually taken from the verse from the second chapter of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, text number 72. Now, devotees, what I have up the screen, just in case some of you get confused, we all know that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is a book written by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Sanskrit language. So that Sanskrit book has now been summarized. Prabhupada said this is a summary study of this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So this is the Sanskrit verse which Srila Prabhupada has given a summary of in the first paragraph. And Rupa Goswami says there, in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, innumerable angas of bhakti are mentioned. Among those, the most famous ones will be explained to the best of my judgment. So Srila Rupa Goswami's brother, Srila Sanatana Goswami, he has written this book called Hari Bhakti Vilas. And that's like the encyclopedia of sadhana bhakti. Once one disciple of Srila Prabhupada asked whether he could study Hari Bhakti Vilas. And Prabhupada said, if you start reading Hari Bhakti Vilas, you'll fall off your bed. You won't be able to move. There's so many rules and regulations. From the time you open your eyes in the morning, before you step down on the floor, as you enter the bathroom, there are so many angas of bhakti that Srila Sanatana Goswami has listed out in the book Hari Bhakti Vilas. But Srila Rupa Goswami is saying what he's done, he's picked up 64 of the most famous ones. And he says, according to the best of his judgment. And this is what he's going to explain here in these 64 items, how to discharge devotional service. So that is the context of the first paragraph Srila Prabhupada states in chapter number 6. Rupa Goswami will now mention these very important items for our benefit. The purport of the statement is that Rupa Goswami proposes to mention only basic principles, not details. So Srila Prabhupada explains that Rupa Goswami is only going to explain the main principles, and he's not going to go into details. So what is the difference between a principle and a detail? So Rupa Goswami is going to talk about principles, not details. For example, the basic principle is that one has to accept a spiritual master, which we shall discuss a bit more in detail today. Exactly how one follows the instruction of his spiritual master is considered a detail. For example, if one is following the instruction of his spiritual master, and that instruction is different from the instructions of another spiritual master, this is called detailed information. But the basic principle of acceptance of a spiritual master is good everywhere, although the details may be different. Srila Rupa Goswami does not wish to enter into details here, but wants to place before us only the principles. So the book Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is voluminous. It is I've got the full Sanskrit versions of both books. It is in 2 volumes, and there are thousands and thousands of verses. So Srila Rupa Goswami is going to take us very deep into bhakti. So it's not possible for him to discuss detail. So he'll set out the principles, and Srila Prabhupada in his summary study actually gives us a bit of detail in many instances. Is that okay with everyone? You with me?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank
Yes,
you.
Prabhuji.
Yes, absolutely fine.
Okay, so we're going to talk about principles. So there are 64 items divided into various groups, as I mentioned. 10 important do's and 10 important don'ts. And out of the first important do's, we are going to talk about 3 which are most important. Actually, they said that these are prerequisites. Before you go beyond the first 3, go into the 64, these 3 are prerequisites. And then I explained about the other 44. So now we shall discuss the 3 most important ones. So this is the verse of the 3 most important ones. The Sanskrit it is Ata Angani Guru Padashrayas Tasmat Krishna Dikshadi Shikshanam Vishrambena Guru Seva Sadhu Vartanam. So the translation is taking shelter of Guru, then after initiation, acquiring knowledge, service to Guru with respect, following the rules according to the scriptures as approved by the Acharyas. Srila Prabhupada gives his explanation of these 4 items in the 2nd paragraph of chapter number 6. I'm not sure, are y'all keeping your Nectar of Devotions open as we go? Has everyone got a copy of
Yes,
Srila
I have.
Prabhupada's Nectar Devotion?
Yes,
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 Prabhuji.
Prabhuji. Yes,
Yeah.
Prabhuji.
It's good if you keep it open and you just have a look, because you can follow where the route and the journey that Srila Prabhupada is taking us through. So the first 4 Prabhupada mentions the basic principles as follows: accepting the shelter of a lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master, becoming initiated by the spiritual master, and learning how to discharge devotional service from him, obeying the orders of the spiritual master with faith and devotion, and 4, following the footsteps of the great acharyas, teachers under the direction of the spiritual master. So the first 3 are given there. So the first one is accepting the shelter of the bona fide spiritual master. So this is very, very important. And you can see in the first, basically chapter 6 is we just go through all of these 64 items. They just listed out. And then when we go into chapter number 7, Srila Prabhupada now starts taking, or Srila Rupa Goswami starts taking each of them and explaining in a bit more detail. And you'll see in particular upon the first 3, there is some special significance we've given to, because these are the prerequisites. So there Srila Prabhupada quotes, now we're moving into chapter 7. It is a quotation from the Srimad Bhagavatam, that one who is seriously desirous in achieving the goal of life for real happiness, for salvation, he should take shelter of a spiritual master. And the qualification of the spiritual master is that he should have studied the Vedas, he should have realized the conclusions of the Vedas, and he should be able to explain the same. And he should have nothing to do with material activities. So the verse quoted there is from the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is the verse. Very important verse. You would have heard Srila Prabhupada quote this verse a few times. So I shall read it. 11 3:21. Tasmad Gurum Prapadyate. Jignasu Shreya Uttamam. Shabde Parecha Nishnatam. Brahmani Upasama Shrayam. Any person who is seriously desirous, that's where we should be. We should be in that space. Seriously desirous of achieving real happiness must seek out a bona fide spiritual master and take initiation and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of a spiritual master is that he must have realized the conclusion of the scriptures by deliberation and arguments, and thus be able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken complete shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, are to be understood as bona fide spiritual masters. And that, dear devotees, we discussed previously the Kanishta Adhikari, the Madhyama Adhikari, and the Uttama Adhikari. So this is, if you're looking at it, this describes the Uttama Adhikari, topmost devotee. So these are the qualifications. He must be knowledgeable. He must be able to explain the knowledge. He must be fixed in Krishna, and he must be free from Maya. Prabhupada used to say that if you are going to purchase gold, you must know what gold looks like. If you're going to purchase 22 karat gold, you must have some idea of what this 22 karat gold is. Otherwise, you can be cheated. So we have to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. And then accept initiation from the spiritual master. And there Prabhupada paraphrases another verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's the next verse, the following verse from the one we just quoted. Chapter Bhagavatam Dharmam Shikshed Guruvatma Daivataha Amayayu Nuvritya Yash Tusyed Atma Atmado Hari. My dear king, a disciple has to accept the spiritual master not only as spiritual master, but also as the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Super Soul. In other words, the disciple should accept the spiritual master as God, because he is the external manifestation of Krishna. This is confirmed in every scripture, and a disciple should accept the spiritual master as such. One should learn Srimad Bhagavatam seriously and with all respect and veneration for the spiritual master. Hearing and speaking Srimad Bhagavatam is the religious process which elevates one to the platform of serving and loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the consciousness of the disciple has to accept, to have. This is the consciousness the disciple has to have when accepting the spiritual master. This is in keeping with the verse, Srila Vaishnava Chakravarti Thakur's Guru Vastakam Shakshad Aritven. This is from the Guru Vastakam that we chant every morning. That is the 6th verse. It's the 6th verse. So some very, very important points made here. One is to take shelter and one is to take initiation. And what should be the consciousness of one who takes initiation? I just want to read a nice extract from the Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, where Prabhupada explained in the very, very beginning days in New York. He's now trying to elevate his disciples, and he's going to explain to them what is initiation. So Prabhupada, being the Acharya, he's going to give them the 3 prerequisites And after training them for some while, he felt that they should be taking initiation now. They've taken shelter of him. The next logical step is to take initiation. So this is a description from Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada is talking to the disciples. He's saying, and this was the day after Janmashtami. And now he said at length, I will tell you what is meant by initiation. Initiation means that the spiritual master accepts the student and agrees to take charge. So that's the spiritual master's duty. The spiritual master accepts the student and he takes charge in the sense that now he makes a vow, he makes a commitment that as long as this disciple stays faithful to his instructions, he will deliver that disciple. And what is the vow of the student? And Prabhupada says, and the student accepts the spiritual master and agrees to worship him as God. He paused. No one spoke. Any questions? And when there were none, he got up and he walked up. Prabhupada's apartment was upstairs to the storefront. He walked up and he went to his apartment. The devotees were stunned. What had they just heard him say? For weeks, he had stressed that when anyone claims to be God, he should be considered a dog. So one of the students, his name was Wali. My mind's been blown, says Wali. Everybody's mind is blown, said Awad. Swamiji just dropped a bomb. And what was the bomb? Prabhupada was again and again and again and again saying, any person who claims to be God is a dog. God is only God. Any person who claims to be God is a dog. And now Prabhupada has just said, we should accept the Guru as God. They were just blown away. Bombshell hit them. They thought of Keith. He was wise. Consult Keith. But Keith was in hospital. Talking among themselves, they became more and more confused. Swamiji's remark had confounded their judgment. Finally, Wali decided to go to the hospital to see Keith. Keith was like their leader of the group. Keith listened to the whole story. How Swamiji had told them to fast, and how he had read from his manuscript, and how he had said he would explain initiation, and how everybody had leaned forward all years, and Swamiji had dropped a bomb. The student accepts the spiritual master and agrees to worship him as God. Any questions Swamiji had asked softly, and then he had walked out. I don't know if I want to be initiated now, he confessed. We have to worship him as God. The students, these early students, they're confused. They say, maybe I don't take initiation because this Swamiji, I have to worship him as if he's God. Well, you're already doing that by accepting whatever he tells you, Keith replied. And he advised that they talk it over with Swamiji before the initiation. So Wali went back to the temple and consulted Howard. And together they went up to Swamiji's apartment. Does what you told us this morning, Howard asked, mean we are supposed to accept the spiritual master to be God? But they're asking Srila Prabhupada. That means he's due the same respect as God, being God's representative. Prabhupada replied calmly. Then the student says, then he is not God? No, Prabhupada said. God is God. The spiritual master is his representative. Therefore, he is as good as God because he can deliver God to the sincere disciple. Is that clear? it was. So Prabhupada, in one very, very simple statement, he cleared up the confusion. Prabhupada used to say, give the contemporary example, that the queen may have a representative. So the queen may send a representative one day to Hema Mataji's house. And if Hema Mataji treats that queen's representative just like he was an ordinary person, then she will be out of order. The representative, she's got to be very respectful. Welcome him in, or her in. Sit down with a reverence as if the queen had come there, would offer the respect. So in the same way, the spiritual master, being the representative of Krishna, being a very dear servitor of Krishna, we should worship. Actually, there's another, a very subtle reason behind this. Krishna wants to get our consciousness right before he can accept us. If we are not in the right consciousness, we'll never be able to serve the Lord in the right consciousness. We'll never be able to attain. So what the Guru does is basically molding us. He's training us how to deal with Krishna. How to deal with Krishna. And I'll speak a bit more about that in terms of the third line of this verse. So I'll just go back to my presentation, if I can find it now. So I want to go back to this verse. So it's Guru Padashraya. That means take shelter of the Guru. Guru Padashraya. Padashraya. Tasmat Krishna Dikshadi Shikshanam. Tasmat Krishna Dikshadi means take initiation. And Shikshanam, service instruction. Then there's a very interesting third word, Vishrambena. Guru Seva, Vishrambena Guru Seva. Now there's two meanings to this word, Vishrambena. The first meaning is to serve the Guru with respect. One has to serve the Guru, and that is a certain level of relationship with the Guru, where one serves the Guru with awe and reverence. But as also our acharyas explain, there's another meaning of Vishrambena. And that meaning is to serve Guru with oneness. To serve Guru in the mood of being one with Guru. What does that mean? It means we serve Guru with such love and affection. As an intimate friend, with no awe and reverence. We all know on the path of bhakti, as we famously read in the Damodara Astakam, awe and reverence, there's a place for it at a certain stage. But Krishna is not so taken by awe and reverence and fear and veneration. When one is in that mood, it's a gap. when one serves in that mood, there is this gap where there's fear, where there's this, you're overwhelmed with awe and veneration. I went through a stage. I used to regularly go every year to render personal service to my Guru Maharaj. And I spent like 4 weeks there, and more recently a bit less time. And the first time I used to go there, I was so much in awe and reverence and fear that I couldn't do. This was like 9-10 years ago. I couldn't do my service properly because, the Guru has his ashram, he has his room, and he has his place and his ashram. You have to walk there's all services to do. You have to be spontaneous. You don't have to wait for the Guru. You must just know what service you have to do. You have to go dress his bed, clean his bathroom, take his laundry, worship his deities, do the offering, clean his room. And then you're scared to sweep while he's in there. You're scared to go and clean his bathroom while he's there. You can't function. You just can't function. So when one has this fear and awe and reverence and veneration, there's a gap and one cannot do it. And I went through that stage, and it was not a good space to be in, especially if one wants. But when you go beyond the awe and veneration and the fear, that is really when one is able to serve the Guru with love. And one develops a different type of relationship with the Guru. Intimate friend, but also at the same understand that Guru is the representative of Krishna. He is Krishna manifest in front of you. It's a common story I say is, I remember one year I went with my Guru Maharaj to the new Dwaraka temple in Los Angeles. And while I was there, I met Balaram Das, who was a very intimate disciple of Tamal Krishna Goswami. And one day he called me and he gave me some very valuable instruction. He called me and he said, Vrindavan Chandra, your Guru Maharaj, Giriraj Swami, he is your deity. He is your Krishna. You worship him and you serve him as he is your deity, as if he is your Krishna. And if you serve him like this, this is how you will really make advancement. And that was so profound, his words were. So profound. And as we know, we can serve the deity also with fear and awe and reverence. And then how does one can serve the deity spontaneously with love and affection, even see the deity as one's closest friend. So this word Vishrambena is very important. One may ask the question then, how does one become one with Guru? One with that stage. That is another discussion. We've already 6:57, so I'm going to stop here for today. Very important verses. I've taken time going through it. But if there's any questions or comments, dear devotees, please feel free to discuss. And
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I have a quick question.
Hare Krishna.
You mentioned two paths of awe and respect to the Guru. So Vishram Brahmana, serve Guru with respect. And the other one was, I didn't get the Sanskrit name, but it's serve Guru with intimacy, friend.
So Vishrambena, there's two aspects. There's two meanings. Just like sometimes Sanskrit words can have multiple meanings. So there's two meanings to the word Vishrambena. The first meaning is respect. Respect in the sense, respect for Guru is always there, but respect where awe, veneration, fear is predominant in the consciousness. And the other meaning of Vishrambena means one with Guru. One with Guru in the sense that there's no awe and reverence. One sees the Guru as an intimate friend in one respect, with respect, but it's a completely different type of relationship. That fear, that awe and veneration which acts as a barrier towards spontaneous service of the Guru is gone. That's the second understanding of Vishwambena. Is that clear?
Yeah, yeah, because I think like when it's often the first one that the fear is always there, and we don't really know that much Guru, and especially if the Guru is not in touch with us, it's difficult to have that intimate connection all the time, and it's, I guess, builds gradually over time. But some spiritual masters are physically around, they come and go, you see them, they invite them for dinner and so forth, but prashad, I mean, but other spiritual masters are not only, there's too many disciples, so they're not physically in touch with us.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk a bit more about that maybe next week, about you know, even under those circumstances, how one can still come to the second level.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions or comments? Pramod Prabhu or Jai Shri Mataji?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I was thinking that I understand what you say about awe and reverence, and that stops us from progressing with a relationship with the Guru, and that we should see the Guru as an intimate friend. But I would be scared of offending the Guru, and that's like a major impediment for our bhakti. So how can we develop that intimate relationship without risking offending the Guru, doing something offensive, because we're not showing proper respect?
Yes, what you say is very true, Jai Shri Mataji. It's like a razor's edge, you know. Prabhupada used to say, familiarity breeds contempt. If you become too familiar with the Guru, then offenses may creep in. But if one always maintains the right consciousness, in the sense that one's practices one's sadhana very nicely, one reads regularly, and when one is with the Guru, one always understands that this Guru is a representative of Krishna. Basically, Jai Shri Mataji, it means being vigilant on the state of one's own consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
If one is always maintaining the right type of consciousness of surrender,
Yes.
submission, and following the main thing is following the instructions of the Guru, making the instructions of the Guru one's life and soul, then one will be protected. And I know for a fact that if any time the kind Guru, if any time he detects that the disciple is maybe becoming too familiar, he will put the disciple right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is the duty of the Guru, and the Guru will do that also. And then quickly you'll understand, my consciousness is going a bit drift here. I need to get the grip with it again. Yeah.
Thank you. It's just like you say, it's a razor's edge, because you want to maintain that respect, yet to become closer to the Guru, you might inadvertently, not even realizing that you've gone too far.
Yes.
Almost. Yeah.
I know disciples have immobilized themselves out of the fear. Out of the fear that they may commit some offense, they've always avoided going close to the Guru, always hiding in the back and staying. But we have to go beyond fear to really advance in spiritual life. We can't be immobilized by fear. We could be cautious, but not immobilized by fear.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Rupa Mataji.
Is your Hare Krishna? Is your Guru Maharaj Giriraj Swami of the Juhu episode? Is that?
Yes, Mataji.
Oh, lovely. That's great. That's nice to hear. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Is that all right? Everyone agrees? Everyone is comfortable? Srila Rupa Goswami's instructions and Srila Prabhupada's instructions? Very important.
Yes.
Yes, Palika Mataji?
Yes, absolutely correct. But when you don't see, you don't often see your Guru Maharaj. It's a bit also because Guru Maharaj is very supreme, and I'm just a very, very tiny little like an ant. And also because I think if you're a female body, you feel kind of a very distant, because you can't do so many very, very close service to your Guru. But sometimes Guru Maharaj become very, very passionate. And once I remember, I know my Guru Maharaj loves cherry, and he loves Marks and Spencer's cherry, and I understood that. And one time in Christmas time, he was there in the temple, and I took a lot of cherries, and when I was handing over my my little offering, and he looked at the bag, and his eyes were so dilated, and he looked and he said, "Oh, you got cherry for me." And I was feeling so much, like, my God, I've got so much mercy today, So Guru does give, though you have some kind of a reservation, but Guru knows, he understands your sincerity, or he does give that a little bit of mercy for you to feel closer to him.
Yeah, you make an important point. If we just look at the life of Srila Prabhupada, how many times did he meet his Guru Maharaj? Maybe 2-3 meetings most.
Yes.
How much of opportunity did he have to serve his spiritual master? Very, very little. But Srila Prabhupada said, there was not a single moment where I felt alone and my Guru Maharaj was not with me. So this is another topic, that how that even without maybe that physical and approximation, one can still become one with Guru through following the order of Guru. And then maybe next week we'll speak a bit more about that.
Thank you.
We'll speak a bit more about. Thank you for that, Palikama. Nice pastime.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So if there's no further questions, comments, reflections, shall we call it a day today? Everyone is so quiet. I'm just wondering what you're thinking.
I was just quickly just going to say the Vani in Vapu, so that kind of applies, right, to what we've discussed. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's been a great class.
Okay, all right. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desired trees, for they can fulfill the wishes of everyone, and they are full of compassion for all of the conditioned souls. Pancha kalpa, turabhyascha, kripa sindhu patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namah. Ananta koti Vaishnava vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Premanande.
Hari Bol.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you.